Hey y'all, Arthur Fantastic here. And today we're going to talk about my perspective on the recent US Judo Open that happened here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, I attended because our team here at CSA Orlando in Orlando, Florida, has a program for judo. We have a multiple black belts actually. We've got Xavier Valencia. We've got Lakea Vargas, two-time world judo team member, and going for the Olympics this cycle. I mean, we hope, right? We've got a number of competitors in the colored belts, and it was absolute blast. First off, Fort Lauderdale is an interesting place to have a tournament. I haven't actually been to Fort Lauderdale before. Maybe I passed through it. Maybe I went to the beach. Did we go to the beach there one time when we were staying at like sunrise or something like that? When we were going to an event in Miami, and we happened to just find that was the best deal at the time for whatever reason. So Fort Lauderdale, I would call it like a cleaner Miami is the best way I would describe it. It's nice, well put together. I don't know how much forethought went into the design of Fort Lauderdale, but it really seems like it was thought out and designed to be like a very touristy spot. I mean, it's a beach town. What else is there to expect when you live in a beach town? But that being said, Fort Lauderdale is a beach town. It's got a beautiful beach. The convention center where the US Judo Open was actually held at is 14 minutes from the beach, 10 minutes from the beach. And that's like the outer beach, like on the Atlantic Ocean. There's like little, shove off spots for your boat and shit. But Fort Lauderdale seemed somewhere between, what did we describe it as? Like somewhere between a Miami and a what? And a Vegas? Because of the resorts. Because there was resorts there. And within like a stone's throw, there are many casinos as well. And when we say like Las Vegas, we mean the Strip. The way that everything was kept was very like, we know people are coming here. It better look nice. There's a lot of cops around. I'm done with describing Fort Lauderdale. All right. It was nice. The beach is cool. It definitely seemed like a party spot where people came. You could tell who the regulars were. And where we were staying right there on, was that A1A or whatever that is, right on the water. It was cool. It was cool. I would definitely recommend going there for future events if you have a chance. Now, onto the US Judo Open. I'm an outsider, don't know much about judo, the reffing, the rules, and I had taken this time of the weekend of the US Judo Open to immerse myself in the culture, in the community, and the rule set and understand it. I think that I got most of my understanding the previous night from one of our competitors, Judoka, here in CSA Orlando, Emmanuel. And he did a great job of succinctly explaining what the rules for judo are. Now, I'll do my best to not absolutely besmirch Emmanuel's name with my paraphrasing of his explanation. But this explanation is really here for viewers on this channel who are like catch wrestlers like me, wrestlers, maybe even karateka. They don't even know the rules for judo. Like, how is that even going? Like, how does that even work? I think that most combat sports athletes might, or people who watch the Olympics might have heard of something called an Ippon. An Ippon is what you're going for in judo. It is 1 point, and that is the end of the match. The game is to 1 point. Ippon is 1 point. You get 1 point if you throw someone feet to back. You take them and you put them from a standing position directly on their back flat. That's how you get 1 point. You can also hold a person down for 20 seconds. That's a 20-second pin. Okay? If you hold that person down, exposing their back to the mat for 20 seconds, that's 1 point. So that's what you're trying to do. Get the match to 1 point. You know, maybe there's a takedown, it's a scramble, some back and forth. The person on top exposes the other person, turns them flat on their back. The timer starts. Now, the next point is a half point, and that's a Waza-ari. A Waza-ari is a half point, you might say, where the attacker throws a person and they don't get them on their back. They get them maybe on their side. Okay? And that's worth a half point. Now, to understand what I mean by half point and what happens after that when a person gets thrown, that I kind of alluded to a moment ago, is that when a takedown occurs and it's not definitive like an Ippon, then it keeps going. And a throw Ippon as opposed to the Ippon awarded for pinning. This going forward now is, I don't know what the actual time limit is. It seems to be really up to the ref and what he perceives as active, and I'm not sure 100% what the rules are behind that. As a person who's watching, it's very disparate in the way that it was executed and enforced at the US Judo Open. But the Waza-ari is for the partial throw. It is awarded for a 10-second pin. So once again, we're going back into newaza, or the grappling portion on the ground. And those are the ways to get a half point that I know of, that I saw. Okay? There are no points awarded for legitimate submission attempts. But there are some points that are awarded as an advantage, and those are called Yukos. Now, you can get 100 advantages, but you can still lose the match if the other person gets a half point or a Ippon. It doesn't matter how many Yukos you get. These are essentially like awarding the advantage in jiu-jitsu to one of the competitors. Which is to say, in other words, this person is doing enough to warrant some type of reward in points, but not a Waza-ari, not an Ippon. So the next best thing is Yuko. Now, from what I understand, Yuko is a new thing, and that's going to come back in a little bit. According to the internet, it was introduced in 1974-ish, but it was removed in 2017, and it was reintroduced this year. So the Yuko, while being something that has been a part of judo before, is reinstituted, and so it is might as well call it new. Okay, for the purposes of enforcing it as officials. And again, we're going to come back again to that later. Now, the last thing of note is something called a Shido. A Shido is a penalty. It's basically saying you're inactive, you're running away, you're making false attacks in order to run down time or not get a Shido because you want to look active, doing fake half-hearted attempts, running away, breaking grips. You might call this stalling or a caution. You might get a caution in wrestling, like folk style wrestling, or a red card in like CJI, or a yellow card. Is it yellow cards? Red cards? Yeah. Regardless, they also did that in Pride. But in judo, the Shido is very, very pivotal, because 3 Shidos and you are disqualified. Okay, now that's pretty harsh, but it forces the match to be active. From what I've seen, judo is very intense and fast. The matches are like 3 to 4 minutes. They are super intense, nonstop action. When there's a takedown, there's no lull or breath. There is directly into attacks or trying to pin, and then they're stood up. Now, there are moments where I can see people like fiddling with their gi, fiddling with their belt, undoing their belt sneakily, to not get a Shido, but also give themselves some time. But that being said, the Shido is there to make sure that there's no inactivity in any of the competitors. It's meant to make them go. Once you get that second Shido, you know that you have to go. You know that you're one Shido away from losing, no matter where you are on the points, on Yuko's, in the tournament. If you don't go, you are going to go. You know what I'm saying? So, that being said, that pretty much explains the rules of in terms of points. That's not even getting into, oh, these moves are illegal, that move's illegal, this is all right, that's all right. There's tons of that, and there's tons of people that talk about that type of stuff. But I'm not well enough informed to really make any kind of discussion on that at the moment, though I have had made arguments for the allowing of leg grabs. That's not even pertinent to this conversation, but you can check that video out. Anyway, so the whole point system is necessary to understand if you're watching this video and you don't know what we're talking about, to understand my criticisms, which are coming up next. I would like to first start with some compliments. The community, awesome. The judo community, awesome. Just like any other competitive sport, there's cliques and there's, people may stay to their teams, you know what I mean? They're in the zone, they've cut weight, you know what I mean? There's not a lot of like, oh, we're all dancing around and having a good time, There's like an atmosphere of competition. It's very strong. It's very strong in judo. As I was explained, there are the top 4 or 5 judoka in the United States are given like a stipend, like they're given like a monthly amount of money to help with expenses and living and training bills and stuff like that. But that's not 4 or 5 per weight class. That's 4 or 5 all together on all weight classes, both men and women. So the top 4, the top 5, those are the ones that are getting that money. So in the end, in addition to just like the competitive nature of judo, there is that underlying atmosphere and pressure that you're like every single person, no matter even if they're in my weight class, I'm against them because I need to be better than them to be that top 4, to get that stipend, to get that type of sponsorship, to get that type of attention, to get sponsorships and do this for a living. So I'm back here after evening classes and closing up, and we were talking about the extreme competitiveness of modern judo and the fight for the top 3 spots, top 4 spots, top 5 spots. And that is driving a lot of people to be the best they can be. But it has, as I said, it's cons. It's not like everybody's kumbayaing and holding hands, but there's a level of respect. There's a level of knowing the grind, you know what I mean? And I feel like wrestlers should really understand this. Jiu-jitsu tero, wrestlers should understand the judoka's struggle, making weight, it's intense matches. And if they gave it a chance to watch, I think they'd give them the respect they deserve, because they're high caliber athletes. So overall, I think that the competitiveness is a positive. I think the intensity of the matches are positive. I think what they were doing in the venue, which was the Fort Lauderdale Convention Center, was top notch. You know what I mean? There could have been more production value, but like it's not necessary. Like what they had there was already good. You don't need fireworks for everything. And because of the culture, I think that's not even necessary. You know what I mean? This is not like the jiu-jitsu tournament come up where we're going to pro jiu-jitsu matches, or even like those big duels. This is something that is still harboring back to the simple nature and style of judo. Like, not that it's simple because there's so much nuance, but rather minimalism. It's focus on technique and not the frills or um, um, the hype, if you will. Okay, which I think is very cool for what it is. You know what I mean? Um, and don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of drama there. There's still a lot of yelling, and there's a lot of um, talking about the other person that's competing against, and they're tired. You know what I mean? It might not be the coaches, because the coaches or the corners aren't allowed to do that, but then people on the sideline, they're allowed to say whatever they want. It's a free country. So I think those are a lot of the positives I want to put forward. There's a style of simplicity, of minimalism. You know what I mean? Clean cut. You know what this is supposed to look like. People in place. Now here comes the cons. I don't know what's going on with the reffing. I don't know what's going on with the implementation of the rules and standards, but it's like different from mat to mat, from ref to ref, from match to match. And I watched a lot of matches that day. I think I only got there an hour after matches started. I think it started at 9. We got there at 10, running a little late, dealing with checkout and everything like that in the morning. Um, and the ridiculous prices of parking in Fort Lauderdale. Forgot to tell you guys that one. That's another story for our vlog that we will be putting together. Whoa, what happened? Did I just start speaking Cantonese or something? Yeah, so the whole idea of the event was cool, but the cons is they didn't seem like they knew what they were doing implementing the rules. Some matches seems like they're throwing Yukos out. The other matches, the same things happening, and there's no Yukos. And there was some questionable calls. Some refs didn't seem to know when to call a Shido, which is, I mean, it's, once again, this is a lot of the problem is that it's up to the it's the prerogative of the ref. You know what I mean? It's up to their preference essentially. Like I didn't see any like in stone time limit that you're allowed to be in Newaza, or like, oh, this isn't a great example of a Yuko. Like it just seems like the rules themselves were still new to the refs. From what I understand from my investigations, is that there is some type of boycott by the refs. Like half the refs of America didn't make it there. Like basically half that didn't needed to be there didn't make it there. So they're short refed. America, I'm told, already doesn't have good reffing in comparison to international competition and their refs. So what I saw was kind of, in some ways, a shit show. I was very upset with the outcome of the sensei here at CSA Orlando, my friend Lakea Vargas. His matches were something out of this world. His matches, his style of jiu-jitsu slash judo, the fusion of those two is completely different than anyone else on the mat. And he's so fast and vicious, like lightning, like a striking cobra. And some matches and some refs, the Newaza, because it was active and it was going, they were letting him go. You know what I mean? Like there was some things that, oh, okay, this seems like legitimate, I'm going to let it go. Other matches, it seemed like he was about to finish the attack and they stopped his attack in order to stand them up at his detriment. And you don't get Yukos for the grappling portion. So this is a completely at its core attempt to finish the match. This isn't, oh, I'm just trying to play and stall. This is, I'm trying to get in there and finish my opponent fast, okay? Now, okay? Because there isn't time to play in judo. There's time to go. So that being said, if you guys want to just tell me in the comments if you want to see the Lakea. I got the footage. I've got the footage. I've got the papers. I've got the documents. But I do want to, if you guys want to break down those matches, I may do it even if people don't even ask for it. But right now, I just want to say, in general, I think that the reffing was suspect to be the most generous of descriptions. At worst, I could say that there is some type of conspiracy against Lakea and his style of judo with its Newaza heavy attacks. It's not that he wasn't getting Ippons or Waza-aris from standing, wasn't getting pins. It's that because he's not afraid to go Newaza, he's not afraid to go sweep, he's not afraid to keep going instead of bellying down that like a lot of players will do in attempt to avoid the pin, which we understand as wrestlers. We understand as jiu-jitsu players that know what it is to be cooked on bottom, to have that pressure on top of you. Totally valid. But they're not trying to get back up. They're not trying to engage from a turtle position. They're just bellying out like it's freestyle or Greco or something, and you can just wait it out, stall until they get to stand up. Which seems like there somewhere in there should be a Shido, right? If you're not doing anything, if you're just attacking or falling to your belly all the time. Which in some cases, it did seem like that was the case. But in other cases, up to the ref, it wasn't. But the most startling and disturbing moments with the ref and judges was Lakea's bronze match. He had lost to a gentleman named Cohen, which I didn't think he lost that match. Where were the Yukos in that match? And they actually ended up meeting each other again in the bronze bracket, the wrestleback bracket, the losers bracket. And this is the match I was looking forward to. This is the last match of Lakea. And he wasn't favored by the judges or the whatever. Like, you know, the match is going, it's very intense, no points awarded, last like 10 seconds, 30 seconds. The other guy gets a Yuko. Lakea turns him, gets like 5 seconds of back exposure. That's a Yuko, as we discussed. Time runs out. And before they've stood, this is like 30 seconds after the call. All of a sudden, the other guy gets a Waza-ari, and it wasn't a Yuko. But the guy called a Yuko, but now it's a Waza-ari. What's happening? And there's some discussion between the judge and the ref, which is also normal from what I understand. But there's supposed to be like 5 judges / refs on each mat. That wasn't happening either. So there was a lot of that going on. Another one of our competitors, multi-time world champion, multi-time winning gold medal at the U.S. Open, Xavier Valencia, all of a sudden got silver this year, only to find out that the guy in his weight class, which they called his match, he finished his match, intense match, and they immediately are calling him for the next match against the other opponent, like trying to hurry him to the mat, to find out that one of those guys were like a weight class or more above him. So now he is officially the gold medalist at the U.S. Judo Open. So there's some stuff going on at the U.S. Judo Open, and they didn't really have their shit together this year. But it was a cool event. The community is so small. You're seeing pretty much everyone. There was a number of people that I saw that I was like, oh, I think my wife, Taylor, off screen, recognized a female judoka by the name of Angela. And she was like, oh, I think that's someone I follow, but I'm not sure. And so, the opportunity left us to go talk to them. But it ended up being Angela, the person you follow, and I saw Roddy Ferguson there. I don't know if Higashi was there. You know, I was so focused on supporting my team members that Probably a couple of famous judokas in America were there that I missed, and that's cool. I'm there for my team. You know what I'm saying? And then if I get an opportunity to get an interview or anything like that, which we will be having one with Lakea coming up, that's something that I can get into. But first and foremost, my team, supporting them. That's what it's giving your energy, your focus, your support, your prayers, being there for another person makes a great deal of a difference. You know what I'm saying? Even if they don't ask that, even if they don't want it, support your team members, guys. So I would say that that would be some of the cons there at the U.S. Judo Open would be, first off, what is going on with the reffing and the implementation of the rules. And I guess there being a greater problem in the reffing community and there being a boycott. So there's a lot going on. And I think that there's a lot to talk about in judo. I think there's a lot to talk about in terms of what could be done to get this out to more people. Because judo is a beautiful and amazing sport that I'm falling more and more in love with. Maybe I don't train right now in judo, you know what I'm saying? But I can I mean, I try to do judo things that I've picked up training with my team, my coach, Scary Terry, Max Snyder, and of course, Justin J. Flores, in addition to Lakea and Xavier,
And
who
Jay.
all have that background in judo. And it's something that I really enjoy watching now that I'm been to the U.S. Judo Open. It's very exciting, and it can be very easy to understand if the reffing is on point, but if the what seems to be the rules don't seem to apply, that can turn off a lot of people. That could, and obviously not only viewers. You know what I mean? I don't know how many people came there just to watch. Most people were involved with competitors, but that's going to turn off people that are competing. Like, like why am I trying so hard to follow these rules? They won't even implement them, and I'm traveling and wasting my time to just lose because the officials don't know what the fuck they're doing. And I think that we've all, as competitors in any sport, have experienced this to one level or another. But that being said, great event. I think that their finals, what they were doing for the finals, that was fun. There's a moment when you go to the finals that you get an entrance song, which is similar to some dual meets and stuff like that in tournaments. And one of the things that people will talk about is like, oh, if you're in the finals, what's going to be your song? What's going to be your song? And then listening and hearing the songs that people picked, because sometimes it was funny, sometimes like, oh, that was a good song, and then sometimes it's like, really, why did you pick that song? Like, that was silly. But I think there's a number of moments that you could go back over, and we will in our vlog. But this is more of like a critical, from a catch wrestler's perspective, the U.S. Judo Open. I think that there is a lot to learn from judo. I think that judo has a lot to learn itself in terms of its, at least its American counterpart here. But I think it's like an experience that I definitely wouldn't trade, other than better refereeing on my man's fucking matches. I think that it's an experience that's worth having. You know what I mean? Especially if you like judo. And I think there's a lot of like judo seminars in the area during that time. So it's like, you go to this event, maybe you don't even compete, maybe you're just a judo lover, and you find a way to train with these people. Things like this, you only live a couple of years, on this earth, and you don't know when it's going to end. And people put off doing things, going traveling, seeing things, experiencing the things they want because they think there's time. And I think that to an extent that's true, but you never know what tomorrow brings, and you're not promised tomorrow. And I think that, if you want to compete, if you want to go to things like these events, if you I would recommend it. It was very cool in Fort Lauderdale. Watch out for the parking. That shit is expensive. Ugh, I don't even want to think about it. But I mean, if you are thinking about doing the Judo Open and you do judo, like you're a judoka, do it. Like, go. There are only so many years that you can do this sort of thing. There's only so, I mean, and some people can be healthy, and I hope to be healthy for a long time and compete for a long time. But, you know, realistically, there's only a few years you can really do this at the top level. And if you have a passion for it, go. That's my advice to you. Worth going to. Does it have some kinks that it needs to work out? Yes. Do I have some problems with what happened? Yes. And we'll talk more about it with Lakea. We'll talk more about it in the vlog. But that is a catch wrestler's perspective on the U.S. Judo Open. I thank you guys for watching all the way through. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Like it if you like it. And if you like this content and content like it, I've used like and content several times now, subscribe. And did you know that when you watch on the app or on your TV on that app, YouTube, that when you say subscribe, the button explodes? So I ask you to subscribe if you like this information. And as I always say, stay up, stay vigilant, stay locked and loaded, stay brutal. Shalom, shalom. Peace. In.